Okay, to continue looking at our data set here, I want to come over and I'm going to make another sheet, and we're going to look at gender. So I'm going to rename this gender. And again, I'm going to make this larger, so hopefully you can see it a little bit better. We'll make it up to 200% magnification. And what we're going to do is the gender is male and female, and so we need to get a count of the male and female in our data. So we're going to go back and look at our data, and we'll notice that column N is the gender column. And if it's male, we get an M, and if it's female, we get an F. So we're going to count that. And Excel has a nice function. It's called count if. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask for data. Column N is where our data is going to come from. And we're going to count if it's the character M. And so there's 2,303 male billionaires in the data set. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do a count if. We're going to look at the data, and we're looking at column N. We're going to count if it's an F. And there's 337. And so we have a breakdown of gender in our data set. Now we can go back and look at our data, and I usually just do a casual to see if there's any weird characters in a data set. Like if I were to go through the countries, I would need to make a list of all the countries. And that's something that you'll probably be looking into when you do yours. So I just do a quick scroll down and notice that this does stay all M and F. There's no other things in column N character-wise. And there's our 2,540 entries. So if I come back, oops, did I just not scroll all the way down? Because I remember seeing 2,600 when I first looked at this. 2540 M's, starting at 2. And I'll come back over to our gender range, and we'll put total, and we'll equal the count of data, column N. Oops, did I not? Data, colon, NN, is that correct? Come back here. Again, I don't mind making a little bit of a typo. And what I don't want to do is count the N in this. Let me look at what I get here. If I do that column, count data, let's try N2 to 2540. We're still getting a 0 out of that. So, count. Count the number of cells in an array that contains numbers. And that's why I'm using the one that contains numbers. And so here I want to do count. I did the one for numbers, and there were no numbers in it. There's so many commands in this that I always look. So we'll count N, and we'll go like this. But we're going to subtract 1 for the column header. Oh, and I didn't put count A. Wow. Let me retype. Get an extra parenthesis in there. Let's go through. Count A counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty. Counts the number of cells of records. No, so count the number of cells in a range that are not empty. I'm on the data sheet, and I'm doing N to N. There we go. And I'll subtract 1 from it because of the column header. Now, something is up here that well, no, our numbers do add up. We do have an adding up of our numbers, so we do have a total. I wanted to double check that. Sorry for my typo there. Again, I don't mind making typos, and I program in a couple different languages. You'll see me sometimes when I'll do syntax, I'll do Python syntax, and I'll stop and correct myself and go, oh no, I need Excel. I do think when I'm teaching live in a class and also in video lectures, sometimes making a mistake shows us how to fix a mistake. Now, I know people watching is like, oh, the professor doesn't know what he's talking about. And that's okay. You can take this either way. I'm okay with making a couple flub ups and then showing us how we fix those flub ups. If you're not okay with it, just give me a little grace and I'll try to give you a little grace. All right, so what we want to do is we want to make a graph out of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a pie chart. And what we can do is we can select our category titles. And if we want, we can be a little more specific. I can call this male and female. And if I select, by holding down the Shift key, I select all four. I can go to Insert. And we're going to choose a pie chart. And I'm going to choose a flat pie chart. And here we have a visual representation of this. And so we'll change the title to Gender of Billionaires. And we might be able to, let's look at what we can do, is we have the ability to do some different things with our editing here. So we have style. We can change the styles. And I'm going to choose a style that shows the percentage on it so that we don't have to calculate it. And so here we've already, with just some few commands, started creating a way of going through this very large data set so that we can describe what's happening with this population. And now we really have the tools that we can look at many different pieces of the data in here. And what I'm going to ask you to do in your project is I'm going to ask you to organize the countries. I definitely want a pie chart of the countries. And one of the ways you can organize is if I go here and I click on column F, I can come to data and I can sort this descending. Now it's going to ask me to expand the selection, and we want to do this. This keeps the data together. And now I have a list of countries. And what you might want to do is turn this into a list of things that you can make a pie chart out of. So kind of getting a list of the individual countries in here. I'm going to let you struggle with that, as that will help you find your way around Excel. There are some programmatic ways that you can get this down to unique values, but I want you to play with it. Please ask me questions while you're playing with it. So the one thing is that we'll want a pie chart of countries. We might want to look at the final worth and get an idea of actually how much money they have. This will all be in billions, so we can kind of look at the range of this. This should be very, very much bulked at the beginning and go down towards the end. And then I want you to kind of look at some of the other parts of this table and find something in here that interests you that you want to turn into a chart or a graph. So that's project one in a nutshell. And I will post all the details up there. But please, we're going to have a couple of weeks to play with this. I want you to play with the data, use the technology, and the concepts that we've had. There's a thing that we could also do with age. I could create a column for age here next to age. And so if I insert, if I go, whoops, go away. If I right click, and I want to insert a column, I've got a new column. And what I could do is I could do a calculation for the Z-score on the ages. I could take the column of the ages and I could make the Z-score where this is this value minus the mean divided by the standard deviation. And then I could copy that down through for the whole column. And I would have a Z-score to talk about where people are positioned in it. So there are different things that we can do as we look at this data set, and the project works you through all of those. So it's a large data set, but notice how quickly we were able to process 2,640 people's data. And this is why we focus on Excel in this class. We want the concepts in the book to be about statistics in general, and then we want to look at some very large data sets and how we can process those.